My name's Tom. I graduated from St Andrews in 2011 as a geologist. I worked for the last 4 years as an exploration geologist for a Zambian-based company around Africa. And in the last year I started my master's in remote sensing, which is to do with using satellites and satellite imagery for Earth observation, but also planetary observation. I always really liked geography and the other natural sciences, biology. I also really liked chemistry and I'm fond of physics. And I was always interested in the outside and how natural systems work, and that's what led me into geology. So I never actually considered doing geology until I came to university. I wanted to do physical geography combined with biology, and I came to St Andrews and started doing geosciences with biology, and eventually decided that I preferred geosciences to all my other subjects and had the opportunity in St Andrews to switch to pure geoscience. I always wanted to be a doctor, actually, but so as an exploration geologist, I was looking for copper, and I looked for copper in mainly Congo and Zambia, the Republic of Congo and Zambia. And on a day-to-day basis, it would involve doing a lot of field work. I would walk around in the rainforest, and we call it the bush, collecting soil samples and rock samples, which we would then analyze in our lab back in our field camp. And then I would spend time putting our data together to try and understand it and interpret it. Whereas other geologists might tend to focus on a specific problem and get one single type of data to apply to their problem, ours would involve a far broader set of data that we would then bring together in a computer, often with 3D models, which we would then try and understand to find mineralization or copper deposit. Personally, I really enjoy the travel, actually, and I really enjoy taking lots of different bits of information and trying to make sense of them together. Okay, so when I was in the Republic of Congo, one of my main responsibilities was collecting soil samples, which I did a lot, and I would have several teams working underneath me. I would plan out where we would collect samples. I'd have to give my teams their coordinates, and then you all go out together, so 5 teams of you go out into an area and you each have the points that you were supposed to collect, and you go out and collect the points. Each team might have five people on it, because you need guys. The soil samples get quite heavy, especially if they're wet, and you collect about half a kilo or a kilo of samples, and you collect 30 to 50 samples a day. It's quite a lot to carry, so you need a couple of guys, to carry the samples. You need to dig for them because you need to take it from beneath the surface, and you also need to sieve them. But I would also spend time on occasional days in the office putting the data together. I'd have to make sure that the sample analysis was done correctly. And occasionally I'd move away from collecting soil samples, and we would collect geophysical data, things like magnetics and EM, electromagnetics. And other times we would be drilling, and I would have to look at the rocks that we were drilling out from the ground and log them and make sure the drilling was done right, and it was quite varied. Yeah, those were the 2 main countries I worked in. I also, whilst I was working, I had the chance to visit the DRC briefly, Democratic Republic of Congo. I was in Botswana as well as South Africa. But I was also involved with working on projects outside of those countries, but remotely, because I would be sent data which I could work on my computer from home. And so I was also involved with work in Angola and a bit in Namibia and Ghana. Remote sensing involves any measurement of light that is reflected from a surface. light can be what we see in the visible spectrum, but it can also be from infrared light, which is invisible to us, and to different wavelengths like radar, which is very long wavelengths and invisible to us. And so any measurement of those waves, light, is considered remote sensing, and it can be done on the ground. You can use a handheld, we call it a spectrometer, to measure the reflectance of a surface, or it can be done from a plane, or it can even be done from a satellite. And it's how a lot of global monitoring of environment is done, and how a lot of research around Mars and around the moon is done as well, because it's easier to keep a satellite in orbit and to take pictures, which we use to study planets. When I was working in the field, I was always very impressed with how well certain people could map areas that we were working in from Australia using just data, without being on the ground and seeing things for themselves. And because of that, it sort of led me into considering doing a master's in remote sensing, because I thought that there's a lot of application for that in exploration that is a bit underused at the moment. Yeah, lots of challenges. Because we're doing very remote field work, just getting to some areas that you want to work in can be quite tough. You might not be able to drive there, and usually you can't. And the area can be so far away from a road that you might have to try and drive in further beyond where the road ends, which is always an interesting challenge. Conditions can be quite hard when you're working in field camps. I have had malaria before, but it's also not as bad as people think it is, because exploration is essentially a gamble by investors who put money into a company to find some minerals for them. It means that there's a lot of pressure on you to find something for a company that expects a reward for its investment. I think anyone who is adventurous or wants to do something exciting and different, and that allows them to travel a lot, but who's also interested in science and in data and in understanding the world. There's lots of opportunity in the mineral exploration and the mining industry to move up. Executives of these companies are usually geologists who start out in exploration. You don't just become the head of a mining company. But I'm hoping that with remote sensing I can work more remotely. So I hope that in the future my career will involve exploration and still some traveling, but more work remotely. When I was growing up, I was into martial arts a lot, and that led me to travel around China a lot, which I think helped fuel my passion for traveling and led me into the work I do now.